Hello, welcome to this video demo of the multi-company email module from Open User Systems. This module was created to allow people who want to run multiple company entities through a single Odoo database and be able to crucially send emails out with the identity of one of those two domains that are used for email, specifically associated with one of those companies. And also be able to use a signature in their email that identifies that company. And normally this isn't possible within Odoo as it stands within version 17, but it's possible with the use of this module. So what you can see from the guide within the store is that in order to do this, we're going to need to go through a setup process, and I'll talk you through how that's done. And I'll show a brief demo of how this works from the CRM perspective using Odoo version 17. So this allows you to use the standard Odoo company switcher, which is in the top right corner, to choose your company identity and to wear a different hat. Potentially, if you're an employee who works for multiple companies, you need to make sure you're representing the correct company. So in order to do that, we need to set up email servers for outgoing email individually per domain per company. We need to set up, using the module, a unique signature template which is provided with the module that you can use and customize to your needs, and then the catch-all domain for email incoming purposes. And then afterwards we can set up unique email addresses per user for both the two companies that we have set up in the system, and we can also see a unique signature that will be automatically selected based on the company of the user. And then I'll show a demo of how this looks through the CRM system. It also applies to various other places within Odoo where communication can happen through the chatter functionality. So if I go into the Odoo system as it stands at the moment, I'll show you first off that we need to set up outbound email servers. So if we look in the outgoing email servers, you'll see I've set one up for each of my domains, .co.uk and .com as an example. In the .com, we'll see that we've set it up with the company domain and the from filter in Odoo, and all of this is standard Odoo, nothing to do with the custom module at this point, but that needs to be set up uniquely for each company. Next thing that needs to be done is go to users and companies, and within each company we need to make sure in Odoo 17 that the catch-all domain has been set correctly for inbound email. This is out the scope of this video, but it's something you should do with your email provider to make sure that your inbound email catch-all is set correctly. And then if you go to the multi-company email tab, this is where we can set the signature template and also the catch-all domain again to match. And you can customize that signature accordingly. You'll see that for each of my examples, I've just put a slightly different colored block here to signify it's a different company. If I go to another company there, you'll see I've done the same thing, but within the email signature I've put it as a blue color so you can see the difference when we test it. But you'll see in the signature we've used placeholders to automate taking the person's name, the phone number, the email and the company's associated website as part of that signature. And the last thing that needs to be done is if we go to users, if we go into the user specifically, you'll see in the preferences tab that currently we have set the standard settings that Odoo needs, and in access rights we have allowed access to both companies, but the default company is something that will change according to the custom module. Whichever company selected in the top right corner will change the default company of the user. So if we go to multi-company email here, you'll see that I've specified the company specific email based on the selected company in the top right. So you have to manually select this, specify it per user per company. So this is for my another company, and you'll see it's picked up the automated signature. If I now change it to Open User Systems, you'll see the default company changes, and in multi-company email it's automatically pulled in the correct signature, and I have to manually specify the correct email associated for that particular user. So once I've done this per user, per company, I'm all set up. Now I can actually use the module. If I now go to the CRM, I'll demonstrate how we would set the CRM up in a multi-company environment to be able to represent each company. Now crucially, in version 17 of Odoo, we now have the concept of sales teams per email alias domain. So we need to be careful that sales teams need to be set up per company as well. So if we go to sales teams, you'll see that by default our sales has been set up to be associated with a particular email alias. Now if I want this to be able to be used by multiple companies, I would either have to create separate sales teams for each, or I would have to take away the email alias associated specifically against this domain. And if I take that away, that implies that this sales team is not company specific. It's now something that can be used by either domain. So that's what I'm going to do in this case, but you could set up separate sales teams based on the specific domain that you want to use as your email alias. But I would recommend in this case for multi-company environments, if you want to be able to allow people to choose, they need to have a sales team that can be used by both companies. So I'm going to create a lead as an example now, and using an external person and a dummy email address. And for this example, if you look at the extra info tab, you'll notice by default it will create as being owned by my company, my primary company that's selected. Again, if we leave that set, any emails we send out will always go out through that primary identity. That's how Odoo is designed. If we now want this to be able to be sent out using any email domain identity we choose based on the selected company, we need to remove the associated company from this lead. So that makes that lead agnostic and is able to be used by any of our companies within the system. So now I've removed that company, I can now send out a message to this specific person, and I can say hello from primary company. But you'll notice the first time I do this, it automatically reassigns the company again back to my primary company. That's Odoo's standard behavior, so you need to be conscious of the fact that it's done that. That's because it's assumed that this is the owning company that owns this specific lead. So if I want this again to now be able to be used by a different company or any company, we can either remove it or set it to another company as the owner. In this case, I'm just going to remove it again, and I'm going to now change my primary company to another company in the top right corner, at which point I can now send an email out through the identity of another company. So I'll say hello from secondary company, and that email now has gone out under the new identity. And you'll notice in this case Odoo doesn't try to reset the owning company of this lead. So that's something to be conscious about when you're managing the system. I'm just going to demonstrate now what the emails would look like to a customer externally. So you can see this was sent from a primary company, and there's the correct email domain, and this is the signature that we selected for the primary company. And you can see Odoo also has the footer automatically set with company details. And if we look at the catch-all information, you can also see that it's correctly addressed. And the second option is this is the secondary company that we selected, and this is now using the .co.uk domain, which was assigned to my second company, with a different signature and also the correct footer in the company information as well. So all of that is correctly branded with my other company identity. Hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching.